I need a game. I need a game to put on the machine. Look at that. There's just a menu screen back there with my basic ass.
Looks like command console or DOS.
Gotta be, man.
It is. Well, it's a menu system. This is what you get today, guys. Fucking three guys. One of them trying to figure out his audio.
I think if you need a game suggestion,
like Bethel, would you like to hear what you sound like when I talk? That this is the new sound of Troy Baker.
He's so versatile. I can hear you now, by the way.
You sound like the text transcriptions on TikTok videos.
Hi, this is your closed captioning. We would like to let you know that you have one.
I love it. Let's see if you can maintain that the entire hour.
I can maintain it for 4 hours. Per union rules.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Is that a SAG
someone
stipulation?
give me a goddamn game. Reach
Half-Life.
back. I want to hear from Mike Bithell. Reach back. I don't give a shit what console, what year. It doesn't matter. Let's see if we got it. Let's spin the wheel of emulators and see what we got. Because I got up here not enough time to do that.
It's a lot writing. There's a lot writing on this, Mike.
For you, Spotify, I just want to send a shout out right now. I just want to send a message of love to all of our Spotify listeners. If you're on iHeartRadio or Apple, I guess we don't care about you because we only talk about the Spotify.
Screw those
people.
guys.
You sound like you're getting ready to tee up an ad read.
But yeah, here's an ad read for you. We don't do ads. That's why we maintain a very consistent viewership. What?
Did you see this recent? Did you see the recent Family Guy bit of like Peter as a podcaster, where he's
yes, I just want to talk about Hatch.
No, it's
all the Hatch that I know.
It's because it's all ad reads. It's like Lois is on the phone. He's like, we got a caller, and she's like, please, they're hauling me to jail. And he's like, oh, well, that's going to be useful because we have pillows if you do a special discount code or whatever. And then it ends with ZipRecruiter, where he's like, ZipRecruiter, we wildly overestimate how many of our listeners are in a position to hire people. And I was like, that's true. I have heard ads for that specific company, I think, on every podcast I've ever listened to.
Well, it like South Park did that, sponsor content episode once. And what's so funny is we didn't realize that's always happened. Like that, I love that Minority Report movie. Have you ever seen this? The one with the Tom Cruises?
Where the ads
he's
say her
a
name?
good one. I've seen a couple of his movies. That right there, where it's like walking past and they could track and real time
Hello,
fire
John
off
Anderton.
ads. Yeah, we are. Oh God, damn it! I got to watch that movie tonight. It's so good. Here's the
really
problem,
is.
though. Follow us, guys. We're bouncing around. Are we going to talk about Midnight Mass? Can we talk about Midnight Mass?
I watched
I've yet to see it.
Mass.
We can absolutely talk about it.
I'm the
I
admin
can't
today.
talk about it unless you've seen it.
I know. I might have to kick you out, Mike, because I watched the whole thing and I was up to
I'm episode 2, and so far I'm like I was right. Like episode and not like in a I guessed it. I was like, is this where they're going with this? And episode 2 is just like maybe. So it is delicious. It is delicious.
It's funny. A friend of mine was texting me earlier saying, I really hate. I don't know if she said hate, but she said, I'm not into jump scary horror. Should I watch it? And I said, honestly, I wouldn't describe it like that. I said, it has those moments, throughout. It has those occasional, but I remember while Angela and I were watching it, we finished, I think it was the end of episode 3 when she said, I don't think I've ever watched something this slow paced that has held my attention this well.
That's what everyone said to me. Everyone has said to me, it's slow but excellent.
But this is like true horror. Like, go back and watch Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
It's
not
a sleeper until it's a weird party.
Yeah, I the way I described it was, it feels like this archer who's really slowly pulling it back and taking aim, where as soon as they let go, it's like a fire arrow that's going to hit and explode. And sure enough, that is what happens. Like it's just so good.
To use that analogy, though, here's what's interesting. I have a friend of mine that's like a really accomplished archer. And he says the goal is not to be able to hold that. The goal is to be able to look and see and rapidly pull. It's like Hawkeye. Hawkeye being able to pull it from his quiver.
I don't mean
for you guys.
I don't mean to suggest.
Right. But to me, that's what the show does as well. So your analogy of being able to...
I think you're wrong.
I shit you not. I wish you could see this. Hold on.
I have no idea what happened.
Brother, I wish that I could talk to you right now, but you are not going to believe this shit. First of all, just say hello.
Is that Rahul?
Hey, hello.
Hey, there
right.
he is.
So if we have to cut this out, we're going to cut it. First of all, are you in distress or are you going to need a cut of emergency?
Is this
We're in it.
Play, watch, listen?
Yeah, it's not live, but I shit you not. It's as if were your ears ringing because we're literally talking about.
Yeah.
I can't talk about you right now because I'm only watching episode 2, and I might leave my wife for you. Oh my god,
That's perfect.
that was not.
perfect.
I could not have planned that any better.
He pulls
I
back
tell
the
you-
bow.
Pulls back. Where were we? He pulls back the bow.
Mm-hmm.
And he just that's what the show does. It's like there's an archer in the woods and he's watching for some prey or game or catch, whatever the fuck they're supposed to call him. And then all of a sudden he goes whack and just nails it. That's to me what the show does. So it's not that like it's this long, it's there's no tension. And the absence of that tension to me is what adds to the mystere or the mystique rather of the show. But here's where your boy got a little judgmental. I was looking at some of the performances going, I don't know how I feel about this. And then I went, my bad. My apologies. I want to rescind what I was thinking, and now I get what they were doing. And holy shit. So
I'm hyped. Do
My
you want to have like a spoiler chat and I'll pull the headphone out and just let you guys roll for a bit? Or you're not far in it, Troy, you said.
no, yeah,
I'm
we
only
may as
episode
well
2.
wait till next week when
Yeah.
I
presumably
will
all
watch
four
it
of
by
us.
next week. I'm on a
And I'm
milestone.
not that
so I
guy.
can't at the moment.
I don't typically jump on. I'm watching West Wing for the first time, for fuck's sake. Like I'm not the guy that jumps on the bandwagon. I still haven't seen What If, and a lot of it is because
Yeah, I
my
haven't watched
wife
that either.
is borderline narcoleptic. What's the one where you fall asleep?
Narcoleptic.
Necroleptic. Necroleptic.
She's
is a-
necrophiliac.
Necro's the next
Political-
one. Yeah, don't go there.
That's a different bowl you pull a key out of at the party. So anyway, it's hard to get her to sit and watch for 45 minutes because at the end of the day, she's like, "This looks So that's my life. But yeah,
That was
that's
me and
been
Aunt
eating me
Hilla
up.
watching The Expanse. It broke my heart.
Wait, so you are the stay awake and she's the fall asleep?
She's not normally, but that show, sadly, The Expanse specifically did that to her. But no, we were on we had a night on midnight mass that was just like when Last of Us 2 came out, where we were like, 1 a.m. going, we can't in good conscience stop now. We're so close to the end. And so just decided it's just going to be one of those nights. And so plowed till like past 2 a.m. in order to finish.
I miss my 30s.
I'm barely in mine anymore, but no, I paid for it the next day.
Yeah.
But it
6
was
a.m. comes early, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a stone's throw away by the time the alarm went off, but it was worth it. But I disagree with your analogy though, or your
right.
revision of my analogy, because the whole point is that specifically the potential energy of watching somebody pull it back. Imagine it's your Hawkeye, but you're watching it in slow motion. The point is that it looks so deliberate and calculated the whole time. You think, I'm sure they're aiming at something. I'm not quite exactly sure what the target is.
Does it hit the target? Does
For
it stick
me,
the landing?
100%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, again, just 2 episodes in. So again, this is not giving anything away, but my favorite scene so far is the rec room scene where it's just the two of them sitting and having a conversation. That to me hit every box. Like, this is not in any way a supplication to Mike Flanagan, but there's a director that told me it was like, performances are great, but I can do far more with the scene with the camera than I can with dialogue. And it's the old adage of Alfred Hitchcock saying the same thing. It's like, when all else fails, use dialogue. Dialogue should be your last resort. And there is so much that this show does absent of any dialogue. And it's just so incredibly powerful. It's the, I equate it a lot to, in music, I thought that everybody needed to have those Mutt-Lange wall guitars, that Phil Spector, just massive amounts of sound hitting you. And It's actually, if you really want something to sound big, it's taking it away. It's very same in game design. So many features that are added in. I really like a simple HUD. I don't want. I'm really loving going back and playing Link's Awakening right now. I'm almost done. I'm 2 more away from being finished. But just the simplicity of design that lends to now the enemies have to be harder, and it's more about we can't do a lot with mechanics. It's 4 directions. That's all you can do. But the enemies are always going to be scalable to whatever weapon or whatever abilities that you have. But it's now just about mazes, and it's about figuring out how to apply this with this and being creative. That to me is brilliant. To that point, if I may, I had a question a little bit more directed towards you, Mike. There was a point in this game where even the people that if you're playing Link's Awakening on Switch, there is it reminds me of that scene in Fight Club where in the very beginning, Edward Norton is talking about his job, and his job is to go around the country and investigate
car crashes, right?
Yeah, car crashes and faults specifically with cars.
Yeah.
And he says that if the payout is less than the cost of a recall, they don't do one. So that right there does not sound like a false premise. That sounds to me like Chuck Palahniuk knew something that nobody else did. And it was like, this is the truth and what would happen. And just kind of spun off from that little acorn of a thought. But Nintendo knew that there was this problem where if you did not go in certain order and get the keys and unlock doors in a certain way, it was potential for you to be trapped in this dungeon. And that's it. You have to go back and start the game all over again. Have you ever found yourself in, or Austin, do you know of a game that is similar to that? To where I literally, and I've been, kudos to whoever did this walkthrough because they've really been helping me out tremendously because I want to enjoy the experience of the game and I don't have the amount of hours needed to organically play through all this. So yeah, I'm a cheater, whatever, fuck you. But
I'll just go ahead and kick you out of the stream right now.
Yeah.
Not a real gamer.
You have the power
Not
too.
Welcome. Get good, Troy.
But do you know, have you ever been in a situation where like, guys, here's the situation. We can undo this entire level. We can we can rewind the clock with design, or we can just let the player experience it. That's not a bug. I'm talking about like
a corner, like the player can work themselves into a corner. I mean, I would argue that's the biggest kind of fundamental shift in game design thinking of the last like decade or so is it's no longer fashionable to do that. And it's interesting when you see something like Dark Souls, which kind of goes against that grain. But playtesting, arguably one of the core reasons to playtest is to find those moments, either literal in terms of like actually like you can get to this point and get stuck because you've not got something, or like just on like a theoretical level of players always get stuck in this fight and 30% of our players can't get past level 4. Modern game design sees that as a problem and fixes it. Basically, that's kind of, and I've definitely been in those situations where we've realized, oh god, we've got like this level is just too difficult, or you can get to this level, as you say, without an item, and that's a problem. And you ultimately, normally, the kind of the general wisdom is you fix that and you kind of change that. But what's interesting is now you're seeing the kind of rebellion against that from game designers and from game players with games like Dark Souls, where we're kind of embracing the fail a little bit, which is something that hasn't been the norm for a decade, basically, like at least. When you look at something like, I guess probably the most famous up front was Valve, right, with Half-Life. I feel like Half-Life was the first time a game developer really talked about playtesting, and like we put this in front of users and we work out where we want to put things in terms of like a public-facing kind of approach.
Sure, but you're talking less than 20 years. So this is...
Yeah, this is, and you see that as well with like, I remember Sands of Time, a large part of the conversation around Sands of Time was that was considered one of the first games to do a lot of like level directionality with lighting. So, they put a light above the stuff that we all take for granted now, a light above a platform that says you need to go to that platform.
Yeah.
The classic kind of Naughty Dog, which color is the ledge going to be in this
Yellow.
franchise? It's yellow there, but Uncharted it's white, right? It's bird shit in Uncharted. It's yellow in Last of Us. It's but that kind of thing. That's my point of like that kind of design thinking of we're going to either subconsciously or consciously kind of guide the player to where the fun is kind of a modern game design thinking. When you think about a game from the eras you're talking about, like Link's Awakening or whatever. those games were designed arguably with like the opposite intent, which was keep kids away from the ending so they get the value, so they keep dying, so they keep repeat playing. I'd say the era of Link's Awakening, we're going away from that, but like that was definitely the arcade mentality in the early console. We're now in that loop back towards like Dark Souls games that actively, like I said, embrace the fail. And that's interesting because that's a bit of language that games have that other mediums don't have. If a film stops halfway through and goes, actually this film got kind of crap, you're not allowed to watch it anymore. That wouldn't work in a film, but in a game we can actually play with failure. We can tell you where you went wrong. We can encourage you to try again. There's lots of language that games have that other mediums simply don't have.
To what do you attribute the change? Like what brought you? You mentioned Half-Life, but I mean, what really said? I feel like the advent of Metacritic it is kind of like the OJ moment for video games.
The OJ moment, yeah.
I believe that OJ. I've said this before.
When it came out, there were riots in the streets. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Only in Los Angeles, but we just love to riot. If our team loses, we riot. If the team wins, we riot. No,
if the review score fits, you must agree.
I can't. For the Spotify listeners, he tried to mimic the same movement by O.J. Simpson with a glove. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to 1995. I remember like that. That's why I said O.J. Simpson is one of the most influential people of the 20th century, because he forever that moment where he haphazardly changed the way that we view news, the way that news operates, the quote news. Where all of a sudden it became
haphazard has to be the most generous read of that moment in history.
Oops, I killed a woman.
Right? Like I feel with murderous intent he changed history.
Actually, I actually think that's the perfect word, because even if he was found guilty, the extra layer of covering it like a reality show, that wasn't his choice.
No,
that's true. That was an unforeseen outcome.
That was
there wasn't any design in that. That was like oops. But like from that, we also get the Kardashians. From the Kardashians, we get the rise of the social media star. From that,
arguably
we get
reality TV. Generally, we get
fucking
from
Donald Trump.
The networks realizing, that they could do
procedural TV happening. So it was like this huge. What do they say that the most influential invention in modern history, besides the wheel and like gardening and shit, was the light bulb, because it had such an impact. There was a huge boom. Because there was a decline in human population when the light bulb was invented, because people could stay awake longer, so they didn't go to bed, so they didn't bang. That's crazy. The light bulb single-handedly changed the way that we functioned as human beings.
That's fascinating. That's really interesting.
So I think that Metacritic, all of a sudden, when you can quantify what people think about your game, to me, changed the way that we design our games. Because what you're saying is, it was keep people. If they get a little frustrated, fine. We'll put out a magazine every month, and maybe we talk about their game, and they can get a couple of hints, because that's what we got before, right? We got that. What was the Nintendo magazine that came out?
Like Power.
Nintendo Power. That would come out every month, and it was like, oh, by the way, we're talking about this game now. Did you know there's a secret dungeon, and if you get a key, you don't get it, you fucked yourself. That kind of thing. But I think that Metacritic changed the way that we both view games and the way that games are made. Is that true or false?
I don't know. I think Metacritic might be another outcome. I would say it's more the kind of popularization of games. And crucially, I think as well, and this might be a reach, so apologies, come with me on this journey. I might talk myself out of it.
Amen.
It might also be a result of the audience aging up, right? Because if you look at like the last 20 years, what's the defining thing about games in the last 20 years? They're now played by 40-year-olds.
Oh, sorry.
So genuinely, Last of Us is also to me an indicator of like, wow, there's a large portion of the audience who wants to hear a story. Let me check out what Neil's written on this piece of paper about fatherhood. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's definitely like, I mean, that's a meme. That's obvious that like loads of games are playing with those kind of ideas. So maybe that's it. Maybe I think what happened was when you were a kid.
Oh, God damn it, Mike Bithell. Fix your router. Fix your router, Mike.
Look at that highly intellectual pose, though.
Yeah. He's
basically like the thinker.
Yeah. He's solving all the mysteries of modern game design, and the internet goes, no, you don't. Watch this. For all you audio listeners, I'm trying to be better, man. Look at me. Mike
I think
Bithell
the lack
has
of Mike
frozen.
all of a sudden is fairly clear, probably most clear to the audio listeners.
Yeah.
you played a game for 5 hours straight, you got stuck, you talked down the playground with all of your friends who were also playing the game, you pirated stuff onto discs, you did whatever. Like, it was a communal activity among the kids on your street or in your school. As we aged, gaming became a part of your evening, and you had a relationship, you had a family, you had a job, you had all of these things, and maybe the player's patience for being punished by a game went down, and our expectation that a game would get to the good bit went up. I don't know. I've been cut out of the call. I don't know if that was intentional, Austin. If it was, I love you for it.
Here's what I love when Zoom does. It goes, okay, we're going to compress everything he said. It goes,
My favorite, one of
Coke.
one of the nerdy classical music Instagram things that I share had like, he dropped fully.
Damn.
They had the like Chopin over Zoom edition where it's the piece and then there's like 3 bars of rest and then, and I laughed so hard when I saw that. I was like, that's definitely like a music dad joke, but delicious.
I'm into it.
Without Mike here to interject, I will offer.
I want to know what you think.
I will. Yeah. I think that for my taste, the simultaneous rise of social media is as or more important as Metacritic, because I think player feedback is ultimately what is driving this move toward games that are not as punishing, towards having some sense of guardrails on, and realizing that, the goal, with exceptions like Dark Souls or even like
Bloodborne or Demon Souls or any of those guys.
Yeah, or like a lot of indie like Super Meat Boy or Celeste, the things that go out of their way to be challenging. Here he is. They I feel like those are increasingly fringe. And
that's ultimately why Troy is responsible for the...
That was worth the wait.
When did I get cut? How long had I been talking before I got cut off? Was I?
Well, I don't know. We weren't really listening.
We had you muted and we were having our own conversation. We did the like speed thing where the video of us listening was looping for you.
Have I interrupted Austin? I'm sorry, Austin,
Austin's
please.
midpoint, I'm very interested because I already want to interrupt him. So go ahead.
Well, basically, Mike, I was saying that it seems to me that social media as just a conduit for player feedback to the developers and publishers is it seemingly as or more important as Metacritic in helping to expose to developers this general desire for less punishing, less kind of brutal gameplay. Because before, you had, other than getting angry letters through snail mail, which is about 0.001% of players that would actually go to those lengths, or like calling the tech support line on the back of the box or whatever. Mm-hmm. Your ability to even know how it's going, it was severely time lagged, and and nowhere near as sort of representative sampling. You're only going to get the most sort of like busybody type players that need to have their voice heard. And I feel like now
also talking to each other, right, more than developers. Like you can tell the internet game sucks as quickly as possible now,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there were like chat rooms and stuff, it's not that long ago, but like, how did you get player feedback before?
Honestly, I feel like probably
it was useless to you anyway, because by that point you printed the discs. So unless we're talking about like update culture, like you're not updating a game post-release unless you are on the tier of like Half-Life, where you're releasing like additional add-on content or Game of the Year edition. That's what Game of the Year editions used to be. Game of the Year editions used to be a way of doing those patches. Because
I think of like Orange Box being the first kind of real DLC situation, right? Would that be?
Well, no. Like you've got the old Gearbox stuff for Half-Life. Like you've got
That's
Half-Life
what I was
comes
thinking.
out. No, the original Half-Life. Like
not Half-Life 2?
No, like Opposing Force and Blue Shift and
those were downloadable.
I got you. I didn't realize those were downloadable.
I definitely have an Opposing Force.
Oh, sorry, no, apologies. That was on a disc. You're absolutely right. That was on a disc. Apologies. You're saying DLC. You're saying
I remember
I'm talking about
not
like
disc-based. You're saying
season pass, that kind of whole thing. That's like within the last.
Never mind season pass. Just downloading to begin with. I'll never forget when I went to install or something with Half-Life when it was like, we need you to install this thing called Steam in order to do, and I remember
Can you
thinking
remember how
like,
angry the internet was?
I was like, I don't want some fucking program on. I just want the game. I rember feeling very
seeing
off-put
Steve
by
at,
that.
I saw Steam at E3 and I was like, losers. Fly by night. I was like, these guys are going to go nowhere. It's
I
small
remember doing the
booth.
exact same thing with Fortnite. I remember seeing Fortnite and being like, nah.
I remember the trailer. I was in the trailer. It was me and Fred Tatasciore for the first trailer for Fortnite. And I was like, this is going to be a cute little game, little indie game. They showed it at E3 and me and Fred were going, isn't that cute? Oh, this is going to be the largest game ever. Okay, cool. Ever.
I have
man.
Summary is
I
audience,
suck
we
at
don't
some
know
of those.
shit. That's the.
Well,
that's
yeah,
the summary.
I don't know. I can't
don't trust
prognosticate
us.
to save my life. Groundhog Day looks at me just like, fucking idiot. I guess to me, it's this feeds into a much larger conversation as far as like, at what point do you shut off the noise? At what point do you go, I need that player feedback? And I know, Mike, how you feel about any feedback is good feedback. And it's incumbent upon you as the developer to be able to go, I'm either going to throw that away or somehow apply it. If it's actionable, I'm going to listen to it a little bit more. If you just tell me your game sucks, okay, that's still quantifiable data that I can somehow apply and be used.
If I want to.
At some point, though, you are making a Mike Bithell game. And I'm not saying that because it's a Mike Bithell game. It's Bithell Games is, with you at the head, is making a certain type of game that you believe is the game that as a studio should make for right now. But at what point do you go, okay, we have to turn off the player feedback? At some point, we can't listen to this.
You have to, yeah. Well, so there are definitely Fortnite's a good example, right, of a game that is completely different from what was originally intended because it was paying attention to player feedback. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, that's an approach and clearly has worked really well for them. For me, because I'm more at the kind of pretentious indie end of the spectrum, for me, where the line is I take on the feedback that helps me achieve the game I want to make or my team wants to make as well as possible, and that's it. If a piece of feedback gets me to a better implementation of the game, and this is where playtesting is really important, and good playtesting companies and good playtesting teams will ask you this, is essentially like, what's the filter here? Like, what feedback is useful to you? And for us, it's always, we want this game to be XYZ. And I've done this. I remember I've written for playtesting teams, like, my vision of what this game is. Like, I think this game is about this, and it empowers players to do that. And this is the best version. Like, this is me talking up, like, my dream. This is what I want the best review of the game to read like, right? And I'll lay all that out. And then you hand that to the playtesting team, and if they're good, what they'll do is they won't just tell you, oh, players don't like this, or players do like that, or players got stuck here. They'll tell you all the places where you're not achieving what's in that description of the game. And they'll help you to kind of figure out how to get closer to that. You're never going to get the dream perfect game, but like how you get close to that. For me, that's the thing is, and this is true of feedback across the board, is the more specific you are with the question, the better and more useful the answer you're going to get. And you can't get that from social media. When people are just telling you, oh, your game sucks, that's not super useful. That's not going to guide you towards a solution. It's the same as if I'm getting ready for like a wedding and I turn to Kerry and I say, how do I look? I can get a million different pieces of feedback. Some of them actionable, some of them not, because they're related to a takeaway I had for the last 5 years, right?
Tall?
Tall? Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you, Kerry. I love how posh we were in that. That's great. But like, there's quite tall. But if I say to her, like, how's my hair looking, then I can actually work on the hair and fix that. You know what I mean? And I think that very weird
overall,
analogy
me as a
works.
person, what do you think? It's like, I can't do fuck all with you. Your shirt, though, I can change.
And that's where for me the line is. But that's one approach, and I would never present that as like the only approach, because yes, you can do what Fortnite did and go, we're not paying attention necessarily, we're not just paying attention to what people like about our game, we're paying attention to what people like about all games. So, this Battle Royale thing seems to be kicking off, so we're going to bring that in. Like, that's a level of awareness and acceptance of feedback that goes beyond their game. Yeah, and you need like millions of dollars to do it as well, which is another aspect of that.
Go ahead, Austin. I want to ask you a question too.
I would think that the majority of playtester feedback that developers would be getting would be a lot more like what you were describing for your games, just because most games, if Naughty Dog is getting feedback from testers complaining about the lack of battle royale options in The Last of Us,
That's not useful. Yeah.
it's like, well, I guess you're just not our customer. That's like,
Just-
what else can you do beyond that?
But if Neil gives and I'm sure he does the same stuff I do in terms of giving the notes to the playtesters, if he's given the notes to a playtester for some reason that, I think Last of Us is actually has to be the quintessential perfect multiplayer game, and he's making Last of Us, and the playtesters load it up and it's not that, then they should give that feedback that our audience actually wants that. So it's about what are you going for? What are you trying to achieve? How do you best achieve what you're trying to achieve? To me, that's the best filter for playtest data specifically.
This is the kind of thing that I wish. Sorry, Troy. This is the kind of thing that I wish. When you're in high school or growing up or even in university, and you're in these writing classes, there's always this. It's kind of like studying for the test as opposed to studying to gain the knowledge and to see how the world works, where a lot of these writing classes are about this artificial sense of how to essentially sound smart. And the epiphany that you invariably only have long after you're actually in those classes is it was never about that. It was about maximum accuracy so that whatever point I'm trying to make is not getting lost in the translation of my brain to my hands or my brain to my mouth, that there's the least amount of friction there as possible. It took a long time to really I feel like understand that. The use of certain words, so-called, fancy words or whatever. Sometimes these are pretentious and pointless, and other times it's really because there's such specific connotations that's exactly what you're trying to say, and the whole point is to make your intentions clear. And
because it's communication ultimately, right? No great human achievement happened without one person successfully communicating an idea to another person.
Well said.
That was quite good, actually. That's a quote. Let's put that on a fucking t-shirt.
Please. If it's not a quote, it is now a quote.
The's a good example of
I probably stole it from somewhere. Someone communicated it well to me, and I passed it on.
There was a great moment of player
True
feedback.
wisdom.
I remember on Journey, the snowy mountain towards the end, the way that level is sort of mapped out is it's kind of like a big corkscrew where the exit to the actual summit of the mountain for the end of the game is directly above the sort of tunnel you walk out of, and you're not really aware of it. It's just that periodically as you come around corners, you're kind of reframing the top of the mountain and seeing, oh, there it is. But what it is you're kind of making your way in a sort of corkscrew pattern, more or less. And the funny thing was that in the initial designs, it was fairly hardcore because at the top, as anyone who played it might remember, there's violent lightning and wind and stuff. And there was this thing where the wind could blow you back. And so in the earlier thing, it actually had the chance to blow you all the way back to the beginning of the level, because you're right there at the precipice of it. It took just the tiniest push to set you back. And that was one of those things. I don't remember if that made it to the point of external player feedback or it was just an internal team thing of going, this is now where it's now telling the player that it's a different game than it is. We want them to feel the punishment of the wind, but not to the point of them going, fuck all, I just spent 15 minutes through what is the most kind of arduous part of this whole game, and it just, in the snap of a finger, undid all my progress.
But there's another type of game, right, where that would be the perfect design.
Right.
That's
for sure.
Thing. That's why I get really frustrated. There's a lot of especially, and I'm not going to pick on anyone in particular, but YouTube design videos. I get served a lot of those now because I've
Like
watched
what?
so much
What do you mean?
cheesy
What are
stuff.
these?
I'm not going to criticize anyone. There's I would say very good couch designers, right, on YouTube who will point to stuff and go, this mechanic. This level design is the best possible way to design a level, and that's so out of keeping with the nuance and beauty of this genre, of this entire field. Is that what you just described, but Austin, is a terrible choice for that game. But in another kind of game, it would be the defining moment that we'd all be talking about for years to come, right? And that's the beauty of working in a creative medium, is there is no right answer. You're just trying to get towards the best version of your answer at all times, and it's kind of a cool thing.
Carlos Santana is considered by most to be one of the greatest guitarists.
Mm-hmm.
Even Rolling Stone in their top 100 guitarists of all time listed Carlos Santana the top 20, I'm sure, at least. Carlos Santana, from a technical standpoint, is not great. He doesn't do anything like...
He's better than me.
Far better than me, too. But you put him up against like Yngwie Malmsteen or somebody, or Steve Vai, or any of those guys that are known to be shredders, which technically what they can do with their fingers is just not human. And Carlos Santana is like, that's not what I do, man. But what makes Carlos Santana such an incredible guitarist is anything that Carlos Santana plays, you could play, Mike. I could play. You instantly know that's Carlos Santana.
I was left
and
out of that.
And the real genius is that he did
you
it
couldn't
first.
Do it, Austin.
You can do it too.
Discernible musical talent, Austin.
Whatever.
Austin's great technically, but like from a creative standpoint, I don't know if this is the right forum for us to have this conversation. I don't think he's great.
This is an intervention.
This isn't that. This isn't that.
Look on Troy's face of abject fear that I was being serious.
We will get to is like, all right, let me tell you what I think you, Mr. Mike Moneybags, fucking whatever.
This isn't a Pepsi. This is a beer.
Who do you think you are? That's not tea. That's whiskey. But to me, it's not just the ability. Like anybody can look and observe and critique. That is far easier than to create from nothing.
Sure.
This idea. So there's even stuff like, so there's things that people have adapted and looked at and have done a re-envisioning of it. And the person who created the original thing is like, yeah, it's a better version of that. But I did it first. You know, and it's not being in any way bragging or boastful, but it's just simply is like, but you didn't come up with that first. Anybody that sits there and, as you say, kind of sideline Monday morning quarterbacks and goes, I should have done that better. I bet every designer, animator, actor, composer, writer, everyone goes, yeah, no shit, that's a better version. But you didn't stare at that blank white page and a blinking cursor. You didn't look at that blank screen with no code on it. You didn't look at that score sheet or whatever with no notes written on it and write the first thing. That to me is the true, not talent, but true skill, because talent is worthless. Talent is worthless. It is just inherent, and it is nothing without being actualized and utilized. Talent doesn't exist?
I don't think it even exists. I think talent is an interest in something, basically.
Or maybe a proclivity towards it. Like I watched a 3-year-old and
I don't think you're born with it. I think it's just something that if you love something and are interested in it, you just spend those 10,000 hours without thinking, and then you're like, oh wow, I'm this amazingly talented XYZ. But actually, it's because you worked at it, even if you didn't know you were working at it because you loved it.
You don't think there's any kind of predisposition to certain
basic
things?
Intelligence, I think
I really don't think I agree with this.
I love it. Here we go. Mom and dad are fighting.
Because I said you couldn't play guitar, Austin, because you were shit at guitar.
It's true.
We could play off.
Put the fucking accordion. Watch this kid wail. He'll tear it up on the polka.
Shreds that polka.
So I think the example that I would use is someone like Jacob Collier. If you're familiar with him, he's this, like YouTube generation bedroom, like singer, artist, producer. He's won multiple Grammys now. He is, if there's any musician I've ever come across that you could righteously say is the 21st century Mozart, it's probably him. He is most.
How old is this guy?
12.
20s, probably. He's young. And there's no doubt that he works hard and does a lot, but he hears music on a level that most people will never even appreciate. Never mind that even if you explain it to them, he won a Grammy for his rendition of Moon River. That's like 100 layers of him singing. And at one point, to create maximum resonance, he breaks through and modulates to the key of G half sharp major, meaning it's not a key that you can duplicate on a piano, for example. He found that the resonance
50 cents in between. Yeah,
and it's perfectly internally in tune, and it's intentionally in that space. And he has a whole long video where he walks through what he's doing. For a lot of people, what he's doing is, it's almost off-putting because it's like information overload. And it's really clear that this comes very naturally to him. Now, I'm not saying that the Wunderkind sort of, kind of like a cousin of the auteur mythology. Like, I'm not saying that he is devoid of effort, but like, as someone who has an appreciation for musical abilities, I can humble myself when I look at a guy like that and go, he can do things that given my entire rest of my life, I will never be able to do.
Have you ever secretly plotted to murder him? Salieri. Have you ever?
Is this a Salieri story in the making?
It is.
Oh
Have
my
you
God.
ever?
That got me good. I was like, what does Michael say? Have you ever secretly plotted?
No, I
Well,
I
it
take your
was
point.
a
I guess
secret, thanks.
I guess the problem, right, is that we'll never know because all of us just live in one brain, right? Like, we can never know what it is to have the brain of someone else, and you know what?
Solipsism.
Like, I'll take it.
Yeah, but like to that point, like again, every Saturday is Traveler Soccer Day, and I'm watching this little. Not my son. My son is a weird proclivity towards athletics. I don't know what happened, but he's good at soccer specifically. But there's this other kid, Shay, who is just abnormally agile.
Have you ever plotted? No, I think
Shay doesn't
that's-
show
I
up
guess that's
anymore.
My
Like,
one
there's nothing
so,
that you can do. It's like, I've studied, give me a guy, Messi or whatever already. It's like, no, you haven't.
Well,
He's
my question is Che, to use Che as an example, like, is this kid I've never met, is
Guevara
Che,
is his last name, by the way.
You're right. Oh, he might have a second career after the football. Is as a co-lead in a really good musical. It's not very good.
Uh-oh.
No, my question is with Che, is it that he was born talented, or was it that kid just loved kicking a ball so much that before he even goes to the youth thing with your kid, that like he's already got 10,000 hours?
Man, it could be that, and that's the
my
tipping
question.
point,
Is
right?
I don't know which comes first. It's a chicken and egg situation. Like, does that kid just love kicking a ball so much that they just have done, like, when I think about like my innate skills and the things that I would consider to be my talents, they're all things I was obsessed with as a kid. So presumably just put in hours
there
of just
are
doodling
people-
on paper and
But I've met people who are as obsessed as I am with what I do, for example, I look at them as almost tragic figures because they're not that good at whatever they
Dude,
do. And
preach. I got
I've met-
contemporaries are the same way. I'm like, you're really into acting, and you
not
have
working.
done more. Not working. You've studied, and you know more about. Like, you could quote Stanislavski and all of that. You know everything, and I just think that there's something like
somehow it doesn't. The wires don't connect.
that's interesting. Yeah, I'd not thought of it from that angle of like, what about, you're right, the massively interested but crap person kind of may disprove my argument. That's interesting. I'd not thought of that angle.
I think it's an interesting. I think the biggest takeaway, my biggest agreement with you would be that it's clearly not a, sweat equity only, but nor innate brilliance absent work, because we always, I think I've quoted this on here before, but when House of Cards first came out and was this big hit, the composer, who had been a successful multi-Emmy winner, he'd been in TV forever, but suddenly he was kind of the talk of the town because the show was a big hit. And, everybody, the music makes a big statement. It's a big, you remember it when you watch the show because it's a big part of the narrative experience. And I was talking to his wife and she said, yeah, he's like a 20-year overnight success because, everyone forgets that he's been in this business since like the 80s. So that tends to always be the case. Anytime somebody seemingly explodes in from nowhere, it's never that way. There's always a backstory. But I don't think that invalidates that some people are just naturally better at certain things,
almost-
whether they're interested or not.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, Mike. I think that
I think that might be. I'm kind of coming around. These were good arguments you two made.
I just simply feel that
Hate
yes,
this podcast.
This might be
If
the
you
series
are-
finale of this show.
watch this. To the point of what we were talking about as far as design, there is that tipping point between to use that from a different thought in a different book into this argument. There is a tipping point between player frustration and player success where you want to design a game to where someone goes, okay, I did it, I'll keep going, versus fuck it, and I rage quit, right? Ninja Gaiden 3, I never finished that game because the final, or not even the final boss battle, just one boss battle was just designed poorly. It was impossible to beat. And it's not that maybe it's not that I wasn't that good. It's just they didn't design well enough to where you can go back and get more health to be able to beat this. And then it's another boss after that. It's like, it's impossible. It's too hard. Maybe for someone else, they could do that. For me, I couldn't. It was enough for me. It was at my threshold. I quit and never played the game again. But for somebody else, it's like, hey, I'm naturally adept at this. Like I can't do that thing. Perfect thing for me. Athletics was just not a thing for me. Sport was nothing but frustration and failure and insecurity. But I could sit down at an instrument and just naturally do it. And then I've never had a piano lesson. I've had one drum lesson. I had one bass lesson and no guitar lessons. And I just devoted myself to it because I had a little bit of proclivity. To me, a talent is not a fire. It is a spark. And that spark can either vanish without a trace and without even barely a puff of smoke. But if you like Tom Hanks in Castaway, if you plow at it and continue to diligently mine it, then it can become something. But that is not talent. That is skill. And that is learned over time. So I think that there are certain people that have a certain proclivity or matched with an affinity towards something that leads to the development of that skill.
I think that's probably also those naturally correlate. It seems very intuitive that they would naturally correlate because because I had the same relationship with sports. I played sports. I tried a handful. I went to, like a basketball camp, and I used to play ultimate frisbee with my friends every Friday for years. But I always preferred, things like mountain biking where it's not, the competitive structure is not there. I like being physical. I just didn't like, the vibe of those because I was never there. I was always surrounded by kids who were so much better at it than me that it was like anything I could hang on to enjoy was lost. But I think that the correlation does make sense that if your interests would naturally chase that which you have a decent talent for because there's a positive feedback loop of you don't need extra
that actually
motivation.
Makes the tragic figure more impressive, right?
Right?
That's someone who's kept trying in spite of kind of those limitations.
I love Robert Evans. Like if you've ever read, which is a great book, or watch The Kid Stays in the Picture, Bob Evans, his narrated by him self autobiography. He said, I was a decent actor. I was okay. But his biggest thing that started him in this whole thing was he happened to be at the right place at the right time in the Beverly Hills Hilton in the pool where so many different other stories have what was the other one, Austin, you always talk about?
West Side Story.
West Side Story, that's what it was. Sondheim and...
Sondheim and Bernstein and Jerome Robbins and Arthur Lawrence. It's a short story, but I was
They're all in the pool.
I was at they have these little kind of cabana style lunch tables that around the pool. And I was having lunch there once with John Mauceri, who was Bernstein's personal assistant for like 18 years or something and very, very close with him. And we were having lunch and he just goes, by the way, you see that table over there? That's where the brainstorm session happened, where it went from East Side Story to West Side Story. Because they spent about 10 years writing it, and early on it was called East Side Story anyway. He was like, that's where they made that decision, and I just...
Doesn't that sound weird?
I'm such a sucker for that kind of thing. Yeah, I can't, and I wish I could remember what it was that catalyzed. But anyway, finish. So your Bob Evans...
So Bob Evans talks about how he just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and the wife of the producer, I can't remember who it was. Somebody probably could be screaming at me and telling me for the Hemingway story, The Bullfighter, was going to turn it into a movie. And he shows up on the movie to play the titular role, and he's the star. And everybody on that movie showed up. And one even person, I can't remember it wasn't Eddie Albert, but may have been, sent a telegram saying, if that kid shows up on set, I'm done. And he came in and he did the big scene that he was supposed to do. And he was prepared for the entire cast to walk out on him. And he grabs the bullhorn and he goes, cut. That's it. The kid stays in the picture. And it was this one moment where he was like, I don't want to be here. I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that's able to call the shots. And so this thing that he had been chasing for a long time, like he'd been an actor for a while, finally he was like, oh, so I do believe that diligently trying to get that spark, if you're not, it's again, it's the Castaway moment. He had been trying to do this and he had hurt his hand and all of that, and he had just given up. And it was the air got to it. There's always a missing component between nailing what it is that you want to do and actually applying what you need to do in order to accomplish the result. So I don't necessarily consider them a tragic figure unless they never get the air to it. If they never figure that out for themselves, so they never go, wait a minute, maybe it's not this. That's why I tell everybody, is like, more than anything, I'm not an actor, a director, a writer, singer, anything. I'm a storyteller. So if for some reason nobody decides to hire me ever again, I'm not crushed, because it's like, oh, I don't get to do that anymore. It's one arm of me telling my story. Now I do this. And that's why I think it's important to not limit yourself to one specific thing. It's generalize yourself and be able to, going off on a soapbox.
I love it.
We'll get to the point where you
the
don't
comments
need to...
on this. You're too young
Can't
to
be
be a
worse than when we
philosopher.
were talking about Christianity. Crikey.
Well, let's
This
go.
makes me.
I think the moment for me where I realized exactly what you're saying, of kind of, but took it to that next level of like, well, maybe I want to make it so I don't have to wait for someone to hire me to make whatever the hell I want, which is the dream, right? Like that, or at least that was my dream. So yeah.
This makes me think of that one in a scene in a film full of moments I love. One of my favorite scenes in Rudy is where his dad, Ned Beatty.
Is that a biographical movie about Rudy Giuliani? Or
Dude, you beat me to it. I had the restraint to not make a Rudy Giuliani joke.
I wasn't making a joke. I know there is one, right?
No. That's
It was Sean Astin, the movie about the kid who wants to play football for Notre Dame University.
I'll stop. There was one starring what's his name?
Definitely
The
not at
baddie
all.
from Hercules. What's his name? There is a Rudy Giuliani biopic, right? That's like, it's the guy.
Probably.
What's the who plays Hades in the Disney movie Hercules?
Darren Corb.
James Woods.
James Woods. There's like a James Woods Rudy Giuliani biopic. Unless I dreamt this, I might have dreamt this.
He dreamt this.
I think you may have. Yeah.
Like he
gonna
wants
look
that to
this up.
happen.
Well, so
looking this
in
Carry on with your
the
story that I
excellent
ruined.
film Rudy, which is absolutely miles and miles away from anything to do with Rudy Giuliani, it's the true story of Daniel Rudiger and his goal to being part of the Notre Dame football team. And the whole thing is that he's short, he's not a great athlete, but he's the biggest fan in the whole universe, and he won't take no for an answer. He's also not the best student. He can't really get in academically. He comes from this super working class family of like factory worker types in the like, I think it's like, like Pittsburgh area or something. Like it's very, and there's this great scene with Ned Beatty as his dad sitting there on the bench, on the bus stop bench, getting ready to board the bus to head down there, not even sure if he can figure out how to get in. He just wants to go. He's just going to go and like knock on the door of the university and go, can I come? Like, he has no concept for even the process by which to apply or any of that. And he's saying, there's this great, beautiful, and again, it makes me think of the kind of tragic figure where his father is saying, a school like that. And his father's also huge fan. They would watch this together. So it's coming from a place of, it's almost like, my presence there would sully this great thing because I know I don't measure up. And his dad says, a place like that is for great thinkers and great athletes. It's not for us. But don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with being a Rudiger. We can have a damn nice life, but that is for other people. And of course, Rudy's like, you're wrong. I have to pursue this. And it's a great, I just love that movie.
It's one of the most heartwarming.
It's pure optimism. It is pure.
Rudy,
do you know what else is heartwarming? The movie Rudy, which exists. I've manifested it. Check out chat. I've just sent it to you.
No way. No, don't tell me. No.
This film may only exist because I imagined it. I may have some kind of magical powers.
Oh, that's right. You're right. James Woods played. Oh, we talked about this. Have we talked about this before?
No, I've no idea what this is. I've never seen this film.
Your fellow countryman, John. Oh my God, why can't I think of it?
We
John
all know
Oliver.
each other.
John
Oh, yeah,
Oliver.
John Oliver,
yeah.
yeah.
Small
Good
Island.
mate.
You guys know each other.
Yeah.
He
He's still a
talked
really good
about this.
podcast.
It is. What else has this director done? Robert Dornhelm. Robert Dornhelm did Vienna Blood. You know that movie. Der Onfisch. He did The Break. Oh, he did Into the West. Ooh, that's why this guy's a dick.
You're listening to Three Men Scroll IMDb. Spin-off show where me and Troy and Austin.
I think we're gonna send this to Alanah, and she's just not gonna publish this episode.
This isn't going on.
No, there's no episode this week, guys.
She did send a message, I should say, about 20 minutes ago, to saying, "I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it this week, so have fun." So less expectations.
So,
I want
an episode
to
without her in it.
I want to interject to our topic at the beginning. Forgive my not spending time on the Rudy Giuliani movie. I know that's what everybody's here for, but
this is important.
My favorite example of a brutal game design that would cause pitchforks and torches today, unless it was a super fringy indie developer who's known for this kind of thing, and that's like why people play it. But it was one of the most unforgiving things that nowadays I just laugh because it's brilliant in its boldness. Is in Space Quest 2, when you're on the like prison ship and all the cells open and a Giger style xenomorph comes out of the cell after you, and your instinct, as a student of pop culture, as Roger Wilco, space janitor, you see the xenomorph coming towards you. Most players are going to think, I should run. And so you run and you survive and you move on with the game. But if it caught you, it would, and Sierra, it's worth mentioning, Sierra games were always like the antidote to LucasArts, where on every screen was 1,000 ways that you could die and fail the game. And invariably what happened to me all the time was that I would save the game, not realizing I was seconds away from death. And then that save game is now a permanent loop. Every time you load it, you die immediately. There's no way out of it. And you just have to simply start the game over again. There's no autosave. There's no checkpoints. And so I remember on this one,
golden age of video game design.
This xenomorph, if it catches you, it picks you up and then gives you a kiss and puts you down and walks away. And it's supposed to be one of those like, oh, that's funny, they psyched me out, la 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 la. Then you play the game, and like hours later,
baby in you.
Suddenly your chest explodes and you lose the game.
No.
And it lets you. It lets you go.
And there's no indication that you're carrying
and it
this
lets you
bad
go a long way into the game.
That's not cool, man.
That's the
not
thing.
Cool.
That's kind of perfect, though.
Isn't it? It's like
I love that.
It's so.
Oh, I'd be so annoyed. I would be livid.
In my
But if
memory,
it happened to my mate, I would think it was the best thing ever.
In my memory, that was like the ending of the game. You literally get to the end and then you can't win because of it. But I think I'm mythologizing it in my memory. I think it's not quite that dramatic, but you can definitely make substantial progress before you die, and there's nothing you can do other than just start the game over.
Amazing.
You will hear me talk about this a lot. I'm sure I mentioned it before, but if you haven't played Shadow of War, I'm sure it's a part of Game Pass or whatever. It's such a great game, and to me, it's such a fun open world game. I'm really proud of that. I'm glad that whatever. But one of the best things about that game was something that they did to help immortalize one of their senior management, vice president of the company, who started the company and ended up through the course of the game. Got cancer, died before they shipped. And what they did was they immortalized him by putting him in as a savior character. And this would be someone, and it's happened to me multiple times, and every time it just never, maybe it's because I have a different perspective on it because I got to meet him and I knew him, but I mean, the moment that happens when you've been on this vendetta mission, or you have chased down what has become your nemesis because of the way that the system operates, and you finally are there and you think you got him, he gets the better of you, whatever, and you are staring, looking up at him, just waiting for the killing blow, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, just right screen, boom, he comes in, and he was like, "You're not dead yet, Ranger, now get up and fight," and he leaves. And it's just like, to me, in the same spirit of it's. I mean, the first time, and I've told people this so many times, the first time that happened to me, I literally jumped up in my room and just bawled. I was just like, "That's the cool." No matter what role I get in a movie, I will never be able to have that is such a beautiful thing. Anyway, so to me, in the same way as like it's punishing, it's rewarding, but it's punishing. I think that game design can go the other way, where it's just like, let's just do nothing but reward you. And to me, that's what Journey was, is how do we make a game to where the only thing you can do for another player is to help them. I reward games like that. It's, again, I've loved going down this rabbit hole of old games and being able to really think about design in a different way and think about games in a different way. But every once in a while, there's these things that snap with me that go, is this good or is this bad? I use this analogy a lot with Austin. Is this a tail or is this a thumb? Is this something that we used to have and we will eventually lose to the process of evolution? Or is this something that is a product of evolution, saying this is actually more beneficial for your current environment, is to have this thing, it'll give you a leg up. And I'm constantly weighing
I like the idea of a
balance.
thumb giving me a leg up.
Yeah, that's a fun mixed metaphor. I enjoyed.
Follow the idioms, guys. Come on, stay with me. Dude, Austin, you're hosting this thing, and you know what's beautiful?
What's beautiful?
For the second time, I got so wrapped up. Rahul called, never even rolled audio.
Continuity.
Did you really not?
You never rolled
I
audio.
really did. So there's now 2 reasons why there may not be an episode, and this was just
This
a conversation
episode's
between friends.
never going live.
So
This
let me
is-
tell
we're
you
just
about what's
hanging
going to
out
happen
right
with
now.
Last of Us 3. It's never happened. I know nothing about that as a bad joke. As a
Troy
bad
Baker
joke.
confirms.
You know,
Last of Us 3 never happening.
Oh
quote.
God.
It's not.
Yeah, that would be the worst thing. Is like Troy said he's never going to happen. Like
Troy's refusing to
It was
appear
a-
in Last of Us 3. That's what I heard.
so you may have to. Hopefully, you can save the audio from this.
Yeah, it should be
but
fine. I did
all right.
you just my own little button on that, and then I'm
Please,
I will
you're
bow out.
hosting.
Is
It's your button.
the it's not nearly the same as that Shadow of Mordor tribute. That's just to gamify someone's tribute in that way, and that everything about that is perfect. That is just absolutely the best possible. I could only hope that something I do would be worthy, in death of that kind of tribute. That is just so wonderful. The only thing
The
remotely...
Last of Us Alive, right, does a special episode of the podcast, right? I assume that was the case.
That's
was
like
it?
when I remember after Tim Russert died, they did Meet the Press where they just held the camera on the empty chair. And I remember thinking that was beautiful. But I remember after Stan Lee died, I've always admired him, obviously, in the right company. We obviously all grew up under that influence to varying degrees. And I always loved the fact that he got to see in his twilight years, this career renaissance and cultural relevance, the likes of which he never imagined even at his
Immortality.
prior peaks. I mean, yeah.
Immortality.
And
immortality.
all those cameos. But I think the one that it actually brought a tear to my eye was after he had died and I was playing Insomniac's Spider-Man and you go into the diner with MJ and he's like working behind the counter and the two leave and he goes, those two were always my favorite. And I was like, oh, killed me. So the Shadow of Mordor one is even better because it's actual gameplay related. But those little ways to bake into games this recognition that they really are a meaningful part of our life, and people that we love and people that we know can actually figure into them. And that, to me, that's one of those signs that they are a form of literature the same way that all other forms are, that they become a little marker of where we are at this point in time and in life. And
mass
just love it.
communication as well. To take it back to the communication thing from earlier, like all 3 of us have communicated with more people than we could possibly meet in our lifetimes.
True
because
story.
of the work we've done, and that's the thing that like chokes me up whenever I think about it. That like, just Thomas Was Alone has been played by more people than I'll ever meet. And that the fact that I can reach out and say something to that many people, even if it's just like, hey, friendship's kind of cool, isn't it? Like that's, that matters to me. That's something it's incredible. And we're all 3 of us are lucky enough to be in that position.
It's
Look,
true.
boys, we did it. We had a thread and we stayed on it.
There it is.
Mom's gonna be proud.
Yeah.
She's going to be
Austin-
so proud when she
It's
watches
such a
this.
shame
There'll be
she's
bits
not
that she
gonna
doesn't
let
like.
It'll be the best episode we ever did, and it'll never air.
Yeah, this is gonna be on the DVD in the bonus bin.
I'm gonna go watch the Rudy Giuliani story.
Go watch Midnight Mass.
That's what I'm gonna go do.
Yeah, dude.
I do need to watch Midnight
catch
Mass.
up.
I will have watched that before we talk next. Yeah, for sure.
Take us out, Austin.
All right. Well,
out.
this has been Play, Watch, Listen, and I'm Austin Wintory, and that's Troy Baker. No wonder this always gets fucked up.
Did you forget my name, Austin?
And
Is that what
that's
just happened?
Mike Bill.
Okay.
No, it was because you're below. I got you. You're the entire bottom of the screen here. You're like holding court, and we're the sort of bodyguards on either side here.
That's good. I like that. That's right.
Yeah. I think I said it, so goodbye.
Bye.
That was a good episode. I enjoyed that.